Good morning, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. It usually takes about 2 minutes for all the people to be moved into the webinar format from the waiting room. So I'll just give it 1 minute and then we'll get started. Okay, I'll start with introducing myself and welcoming each of you, the participants and the panelists, to the discussion today. My name is Dr. Rick Hall. I am a clinical professor and senior director of health innovation for the Edson College of Nursing and Health Innovation at Arizona State University. If this is your first panel today, welcome. If you're continuing on from us from the last two panels, we're excited to have you back. Today is our third annual Hacking the Human conference, and we're specifically talking about technology's impact on human connection and loneliness. And when we originally thought of this idea, this was like pre-COVID pandemic, and this particular theme became more and more relevant as the year went on. And I think I had goosebumps a few months ago thinking, man, we are really on to the right topic for the right time at some point in time, because this conference today is really broken out into 4 different segments. And we've already talked about disparities in healthcare, and today's session, the session that you're in right now, is on mindfulness and loneliness. And I can't think of a more important topic, especially as it relates to students and people in the workforce today in this environment, than these topics. And so I want to encourage you, first of all, to come back after this session. We have 2 more sessions. The last 2 are, one is on social media, technology, and well-being, and the final one is tools and solutions for managing connection. I also want to thank our sponsors, the City of Phoenix, Audacious Studios, and Nutritional Brands, for helping to offset our costs for the conference. And at the end of this session, we're going to give away 3 door prizes for participants. So we encourage you to stay all the way till the very end. After our panelists are done, we'll have an opportunity also for questions. So feel free to put in questions in the chat at any time. You don't need to wait till the end for that. And then at the very end of the original discussion, we'll have an opportunity for interaction through the chat. So you won't be able to talk directly in this webinar style of Zoom, but you can put those questions in the chat, and we'll make sure to try to get to as many of them as possible. So thank you for coming, and I want to turn it over to our moderator on this discussion, Jackie Speer. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. So today we are here to talk about mindfulness and how it can impact us in this current climate where we may be experiencing stress, isolation, loneliness, and how technology comes into play with that. So we have a wonderful panel here today, all experts in well-being and mindfulness. And today we have Dr. Teri Pipe, who is ASU's Chief Wellbeing Officer and Founding Director of the Center for Mindfulness, Compassion, and Resilience. And hi, Teri. And then we have Susan West, who is the owner and general manager of M2 Wellbeing. Thank you for being here today, Susan. And we have Dr. Janet Bruno, who is the president of Purely Scientific Incorporated. Thank you all for being here, and we can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about mindfulness and loneliness. But before we get started on our Q&A, Dr. Teri Pipe is going to be leading us in a mindfulness moment. So I will turn it over to Dr. Pipe.
Thank you, Jackie. Well, hello and welcome to you all. So I have been invited to lead a 5-minute mindfulness meditation. And so for my friends, Janet, Jackie, and Susan, if you want to turn off your cameras for this part, you're welcome to do that. I know sometimes being observed while you experience a mindful moment can be kind of feel a little odd. So for the rest of us, if you would just get into a really comfortable position. So there is no strict way of arranging your body for mindfulness. Often it's nice to have a nice tall spine. And so if you're sitting, just bringing some uprightness and strength to your spine. And then feeling where your chair or the floor is supporting you. So really feeling that grounding of the earth underneath you. And then if you'd like, you can close your eyes or simply soften your gaze. Now I'll be giving you some very simple instructions, but just a gentle reminder that you are in charge of you. So if any of these invitations don't feel quite right for you, please just adjust them, tailor them to you, and make this time your time. So starting to turn your attention inward. There's a lot going on outside of us, lots of noise and distraction, lots of information swirling, and a lot going on inside, maybe thoughts and ideas, reactions, responses, things from our to-do list. And so now is a time that you can simply set those things down for just a few minutes. They'll be there when you return. So setting all of that aside, and knowing also that the distractions will continue to happen during these few minutes. When they do, just simply notice the distraction and bring your attention back. In this situation, bring your attention to your breath, or to your heart beating, or simply to yourself. Matters less the object of your attention as the quality of your attention. So just gently bringing your attention to rest on your breath, or your heart, or your being. And inviting some ease into your body and into your mind and your being. So often, especially in times of uncertainty, we tense against what might be coming, what has come in the past. So just allowing that bracing, that tension to dissolve and melt right now, mentally and physically and in your being. So sitting with attention on your breath, on your being, letting your physical self simply experience ease. Nowhere else to go and nothing else to do right now. You belong right here and right now. So bringing awareness, bringing presence to yourself. Just curiosity, no judgment. Simply awareness and awakeness. So being with yourself in this quiet and still space that you've created. Noticing what it's like to simply arrive. And how pleasant it is to arrive within yourself as an individual, as a unique person, as a human being. And also knowing that there are others with us today. We have 53 people here together. Even though we might not physically be together, we're in a community now. And so knowing deeply that you belong within yourself and you belong to this community and many other communities. You're not actually alone. So feeling that sense of being whole within yourself and being connected at the same time. And as you feel the earth underneath you, just a simple reminder that many people have their feet or their bodies on the earth with us today. So we are part of the human family, part of the animal family, part of nature. So feeling a sense of connection and grounding. And then to close our practice, maybe coming with an intention of how you want to be in this next little while. Would you like to be content, curious, peaceful, happy, however it is that you would like to be? And just making that your intention and then simply releasing it, not really clinging on to that intention, just having it as an awareness of how you would like to be. And then bringing some movements now into your body, however your body wants to move and stretch perhaps. And then reopening your eyes if they've been closed and looking around your space and getting a sense for how you are and where you are. maybe seeing things a little bit more clearly, feeling and hearing things a little bit more clearly. So thank you so much for practicing with me. And again, it's my pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pipe. That was just a wonderful way to get us started today, talking about loneliness and mindfulness. So I wanted to see, before we jump into the questions, just if anybody would like to share any observations they have about what's going on right now today. I think loneliness has been an issue. I know for our college and our university, that's come up for the students as being an issue, loneliness and isolation. But now with the pandemic happening and a lot of people working remotely, just wondering what observations you have about that.
That's just to jump in.
Yes.
Okay, I'll start. Well, we work primarily with companies and organizations or groups of people that work together. And I was on a call yesterday with somebody who was talking about, he's in a sales role, and he said, I went from traveling 100 days a year to 0. And he's sort of locked away in this cabin. And, you know, I think what we're seeing with many people is that they're finding some opportunity in more spaciousness, some recognition that less activity can invite more creativity and opportunity. But they're also having to relearn how they connect with people. I think we have traditionally relied very heavily, and I know that I do, on those in-person and face-to-face connections. And so even folks who didn't feel a sense of loneliness before the pandemic, and many, many people did feel that very strongly, are now kind of trying to regain their footing. And so there is a common humanity in that, whether you really came from a place where you were already lonely and that has presented even some new challenges, or you weren't, or you didn't, and you're having to relearn how you connect with people. And so I think really kind of the takeaway here is that in some ways it's kind of put us all on equal footing, but it's a big challenge that we're all navigating.
Yeah, certainly. And I just so agree, the challenges that everyone is facing, but also a lot of the appreciation that's coming out of this, appreciating simple things, and the things that we took for granted before are definitely silver linings in this. So I would like to start this out by asking Dr. Pipe if you could try to help us frame what mindfulness is, and what are some different types of different ways to practice mindfulness. And then if Dr. Bruno and Susan would like to jump in after as well, you can as well.
Thanks, Jackie. So I will keep this very brief and very simple, even though there's so much to say about what is mindfulness. So when we talk about mindfulness, we really, at ASU, we talk about presence and focus being at the core. Now, there are lots of other attitudes to bring along with mindfulness, but simply that's how we talk about it. And we also honor the fact that while we don't teach it as a religion at all, there are many different faith traditions and wisdom traditions, indigenous cultures that have a mindfulness aspect to them, whether or not it's named mindfulness or not. And so as we go forward, we teach it in a way that does not rely on a certain belief system or require it. And likewise, if you don't have a belief system, that's not a problem. And if you have your own belief system separate, that's fine too. Mindfulness should not get in the way of you practicing your beliefs. So when we think about mindfulness being that present and that focus, it really starts often with ourself. So learning, as we just practice together, learning how to be in the moment and awake and alive, first with the self and perhaps with the senses or with the breath. There's lots of different things that we can bring our focus to. And then learning that when we live that way with awareness and focus with ourself, it often leads to a bit more self-acceptance and even kindness within the self, which then just bubbles out into our relationships with other people. It's just a natural outgrowth that we become more compassionate with others, and maybe even others that we don't see face to face, maybe others that we'll never meet, and others including creatures and the planet. So thinking about mindfulness as certainly a personal practice, and it has a lot of science around it, how beneficial it is for our health and our well-being. But we find that that's not sufficient, that we really want to talk more broadly and societally and in a planetary way about how when we practice as individuals, it is contagious, so to speak, just like this virus is, only in a good way. So when we bring compassion and mindfulness into the world, it starts to catch and grow. And so to me and to us, it just feels like it's a very optimistic and wholehearted, open-hearted way of being curious about life and living. So I think I'll stop there and see if Janet or Susan has anything to add with that.
I'll just pop in real quick that on real practical, I fully love your explanation, Teri. And in just adding that on fully practical grounds, a lot of people think mindfulness is meditation, and it can be, but it also can be while you're brushing your teeth. You're just really aware of brushing every little tooth or eating mindfully. Whatever you're doing, just be in that moment. And it becomes an exercise of just appreciating. I have found that once I started eating mindfully, oh my gosh, the flavors were so much more vibrant, and it was just so much more fun to eat when I was in the moment. So I just thought I'd throw that out there, that mindfulness does not necessarily mean meditation. That's just one way. You can be mindful as you're running, or as you're listening to some music, or petting your pet. Just being in the moment and appreciating it. And if you can appreciate that and experience it so simply, it really opens things up beautifully.
Petting my pet is a daily practice for me, for sure. And I just wanted to add, and you mentioned this too, Teri, that the piece of acceptance and non-judgment is really critical, because I think that there is also a perception that there's this idea where, what you're seeking is a lot of positive attributes, peace, kindness, and those have been proven to be outcomes many times. But part of what you find through this process is a lot of challenging feelings and difficult emotions, and allowing yourself to be curious and let them be there, because that is how you can invite a more skillful response and acceptance that will ultimately, lead to more positive outcomes.
I so appreciate that addition, because often people think too that mindfulness is turning away from pain or disruption or injustice. And that could not be further from the truth. Often mindfulness opens our eyes and our hearts to the things that are going on around us that are causing pain. And it informs us about right action, if there is right action to take. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, thank you for those answers. Those were really beautiful. And I do agree. My puppy that I have has been keeping me very present in the moment. They're so joyful and wonderful and prance around. It's just wonderful to stay in the moment with the puppy. So Susan, I wanted to posit to you, what is the link between loneliness and mindfulness?
Well, it's actually a great segue, because it's a bit what I was mentioning, is that mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness, or really the seeking to be more mindful in your life, is this awareness of what you're thinking, feeling, and sensing, and allowing it to be there. And with difficult emotions in particular, we do have an urge to suppress, to push away, to resist. And the reality is that sometimes we can distract ourselves from those things, but they are there. And mindfulness, sort of either through the sensations of your body or by tuning into what you are feeling and sensing, can help you become aware of those things that are running in the background. So there are times like just now when Teri invited us to practice, I get nervous public speaking. So I noticed when we started that practice that my breath was shallow and my heart rate was accelerated, and it did come down through that practice. And it's a positive, but sometimes I walk into a practice and I think everything's hunky-dory. And then as I'm watching where my mind is leaping to, it's going to all these really dark places. But the utility of that is, I think, oh, this is what's running in my background. And this is what might be causing me to get triggered with my family when they say something or whatever that is. So all these experiences are useful. So, the link to loneliness in particular, specifically, is that I think that loneliness is another emotion that as a society, we attribute a lot of sort of negativity or self-blame or shame to that emotion. And so when we feel it, we tend to internalize it, or we tend to suppress it. And I recently read this book, which I highly recommend. It's called Together. It was written by Dr. Vivek Murthy. I might be mispronouncing his name. I apologize. And he was a Surgeon General under Obama, and he did a national roadshow when he took office to really try to understand throughout the nation what were some of the common themes that needed to be addressed. And what he found, or among the things he found that he prioritized, was this pervasive loneliness. And he really wanted to give it a voice and reduce the shame and normalize it. And one of the things he says early on in his book is like, it's so natural. Like when you need water, you feel thirst. When you need food, your body feels hunger. And when you need human connection, your body, you feel lonely. It is just as basic of a need. And we know that social contact is critical to our well-being, and that its absence or loneliness is risk for poor health and accelerated mortality. So it's not just, this is important, it's a primal need. So what mindfulness does through practice, as we're talking about, is it helps you become more aware of those emotions. It might help you create some space to determine what are some of the techniques or resources I have available to me to create some connection in my life and address this emotion. And I'm okay. I deserve connection, and I'm not alone. And so I think that mindfulness really can be a powerful tool just to help us set the stage for a more skillful response.
Thank you. Just wanted to see if anybody else wanted to comment on that. I have so much respect for what you're saying, and I really appreciate that. Loneliness is absolutely, you feel it definitely deep inside, and when you feel like you need some human connection. And although this has been definitely a time to kind of scale back and have some time to ourselves, it's also been a time that has really intensified the need to reach out and know that we're not alone, and that we have other people around us and people that we care about and that care about us. So our next question is, Janet, what first got you interested in mindfulness, and how has that evolved?
That's a fun question, because I think everyone sometimes thinks mindfulness is this big exotic thing, and I just wanted to bring it into some real terms. So I'm really grateful to my parents. They introduced me to meditation when I was 14. So it was back when transcendental meditation was kind of all the rage. I grew up in Seattle, and they brought us off, and there were kind of some hippies up front, and they were showing what this crazy thing was, and I was given a mantra. And I just remember thinking, this was pretty amazing. I just had never experienced anything like that, and I loved it. And, I was 14, so I was a kid, and I kind of didn't practice it right away, and it just kind of went. But it definitely planted a seed. And as I progressed, that was really the time when I just became fascinated with the mind and how much power the mind has if we recognize it. And so I just that really started the lifelong journey that I had, fascinated about the mind and what it could do and how we could tap into some of that power. And so as life went on, like I said, I didn't really practice it right away, but that seed was planted. And as I progressed in my career, becoming a medical doctor, like with stress in medical school, I remembered that that was really relaxing. So I just went back and I developed my own little periodic meditation that would really calm me down and help me get through my exams. And in my surgery residency, and I was very sleep deprived, I had a digital watch. I was faithfully, I just somehow sensed that it was going to get me through not only my day, but performing at my best when I was sleep deprived. And I would literally set my digital watch for 5 minutes and shut my eyes and meditate, because I knew I was so sleep deprived I'd fall asleep. But I literally every day did that. And I had several people say, you know, how can you get so much done and you're organized? And I truly believe it was my meditation, my mindfulness, that was like my secret weapon. So it kind of progressed. And then when I went into corporate America, I realized that it didn't have to be just personally for me, but I could also professionally share this. And so it was 16 years ago that I really started pursuing it. I developed a daily meditation practice since that time. And I started going to professional training, learning from John Kabat-Zinn and others, and how to bring it in. So I brought it into the professional world in corporate America, as well as my clients, and doing some executive coaching. So it's progressed through my life as I've progressed, and I am thoroughly convinced that my mindfulness practice is a huge part of my success and my happiness and who I am and how I interact with the world. And I just love sharing it with other people because I've seen the amazing changes in their life. So I kind of wanted to share that just because I think, like I said, when there's a personal connection, someone who's listening to this or watching us may think, you know, maybe I can just try it, because it's very easy to adopt and, you know, dabble with it here and there. I always tell people take a couple minutes a day if that's all you can do. I work as an executive mentor at the W.P. Carey full-time MBA students, and all of the mentees I've worked with have started meditating, and a couple of them that have graduated said, you know, thank you so much. I meditate right before I go to sleep, and I've never slept so soundly. So thank you. So there's all sorts of benefits. And as a doctor, there's so many health benefits I can go on, but that's a brief story of my meditation mindfulness and how it's just been a huge impact to my life, as well as the lives of the people I've been able to share it with.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bruno. The mindfulness is definitely will give you immediate benefits, but it's also very cumulative, and over time you get more and more benefits out of it. It does build on itself. So that is awesome. And it looks like we have 2 minutes till we get to our audience Q&A. So we just wanted to talk really quickly, if we can, get into the opportunities that we have surrounding this loneliness and mindfulness and what's going on. So if we could maybe just ask, what are some innovations that are helping grow mindfulness practice, if you all want to answer that?
And I'll jump in real quickly, trying to say, I mean, smartphone is the biggest, or I don't want to say the biggest, but is a really important driver of mindfulness and meditation adoption. There's now several scholarly research studies that have demonstrated that mindfulness interventions through a smartphone can address loneliness specifically, but in terms of supporting practice, one of the things I found most interesting is the CDC has been tracking alternative health therapies generally, but meditation and mindfulness is one of those things. And it was really kind of hanging low at like 4%, 7% of adults across the United States that had tried mindfulness. And they do the study every 10 years. And the most recent data that came out in 2019 is that now over 14% of adults in the United States have meditated in the last 12 months, which was a huge jump from 8%, very significant, and actually is more than yoga. I mean, that kind of blew my mind. Just very slightly more, but statistically significant. And so anyways, just the accessibility of it and that support system, I think, has really been one of the primary drivers, as well as some media acceptance and a lot of kind of demystifying it and weirdoing it, I guess. I think for a long time people thought it was just a little bit flaky. So those two things together in terms of acceptance and access, I think has been really significant.
I'll just add also that it's being embraced in all sorts of, I mean, like education is starting to embrace it. Corporate America, absolutely. I mean, a lot of leader executives are actually putting their leaders through mindfulness training because they realize they're more effective as active listeners, and they can be better leaders if they're more present. And also sports, a lot of athletes and teams are putting their people through meditation every single day because they realize their focus and intensity can be better. So it's exciting to see how it's being embraced much more widely. And I agree with Susan, the apps are a way for people to, I mean, there's a lot of apps. It's in the resources. I know we're going to give you some resource sheets, and there's some apps there for that. So it's exciting how much it's innovating.
Agreed. And I think, with the pandemic and with the need to do a lot of things virtually, I had a bit of skepticism that we could teach mindfulness fully online. And my skepticism is, it's gone. It's completely gone because we do, we can. And of course, it's not like sitting next to someone. But it is really effective to have, like we did, we just practiced together. We can still be together even though we're not physically together.
Jackie, I don't know if you would like to read some of the questions or me, but there's some in the Q&A and also in the chat. I was wondering, could you see the Q&A ones? Maybe we could start with those.
Okay, I've got the ones in the chat, starting with Lance. Is that?
Well, we'll do the Q&A first, and then we'll jump over the cat. Maybe I'm only getting them. Let me, if you don't mind, I'll read them. Is that all right?
Sure. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. This one says, for me personally, I have found several online circle groups with like-minded people who have helped me to stay and feel connected with others. What other recommendations would you give for staying connected to others if you could share any resources that may or may not be known to this audience, like social media, organizations, etc.?
So one thing that you all have access to, and you'll find it in your resource sheet, is that ASU's Center for Mindfulness, Compassion, and Resilience puts on a daily YouTube Monday through Thursday, and we have since March 16th, 2020. All of those sessions are archived along with short practices on our website. So you will have that website, and so please access it, share it. It was meant to be free and open to all, and I think that's one thing that we've been able to put out there into the world that has been really effective. And we have global participants all over the United States and the world. And so you don't need to be faculty, staff, or student to participate with that.
I would also add, just from a non-technology base, finding some activities to do outside that are safe with others, either because you're using a mask or you're able to be distanced. My husband and I took up tennis in January. I'm still using my racket from 1984, which by the way still works. And but it's been so fun. And it's really been a great connection for us and to some other people, as well as I have somebody I hike with every Tuesday morning. So ways to exercise and get outside can also be, a powerful connection to others if you can make that work in your comfort zone.
Thank you. I have another question from the Q&A. It says, do you have any suggestions for when we are feeling lonely to not continually fall into the trap of turning to superficial modes of human connection like Netflix or YouTube videos? Good question.
Yeah, I can just say that, the best way to do that is be aware as best you can of yourself when you're in the moment feeling that urge. What meditation and mindfulness does is it can actually create the gap so that when you're aware of that, you can actually choose a response rather than reflexively going to the Netflix or going to the YouTube. So whenever you're aware of whatever you're feeling, just in that moment, stand up, change your physiology. If you can, get outside or do some quick calisthenics, something that releases that urge. And then you can then make a conscious choice instead of a reflexive choice on something that's probably a healthier thing for you to do. That would be my suggestion there.
You can also use, there are timers on your phone in particular, but on most of your devices that'll give you alerts. So sometimes you can say, yeah, I'm going to choose to do this, but I'm going to put a half an hour time limit on it, and then use your, your device to alert you when that time is up.
That's great. There's one final one in the Q&A, and then we'll try to get to a couple on the chat, and that is there a best time of day during the day to practice mindfulness?
I love this question, and I just want to say the best time is when you will do it. So I love the mornings, but some people love the evenings, midday. It matters not as much when you do it as when will you do it. And so just start with what is the most comfortable, the easiest to slide into your normal routine, and start there, and then create new rituals if that is helpful to you. But start where you can do it, where you will do it.
Great answer. Jackie, do you want to go ahead and read any pick from one or two of the chats?
Sure. So we have somebody asking, Lance is asking, with the spike of the self-care trend in our current society, how do we ensure that people truly exhibit self-care and mindfulness as opposed to retail therapy that is disguised as self-care?
That's an interesting question. Being focused on self-care, only you, I guess, can really know what you need versus what's authentic and what's, I mean, not going along with what society says you should do, but listen to your heart and do what you should do. Part of the mindfulness is getting to know yourself. Know thyself is, like, I think the best goal we can all go after. So be able to listen to yourself on what you need, and just don't let society tell you what to do. That would be my thought on that.
Yeah, and I would also say that offer yourself congratulations and affirmation that you're making the time for self-care, because not everybody does, and it is really important. And then as you decide how you're going to use that time, there'll be some trial and error, as Jana was saying.
Thank you.
One of our doctoral students that graduated from with the center, Sophia Town, did a lot of work in self-care and leadership. And what I loved about part of her work was that it really unveiled the fact that self-care is something that feels good in the moment, but it will also feel good in the future. So often the things that we do, in the moment may come back to haunt us in a bad way in the future. So select those activities that are really nurturing for yourself now and later. And often those activities are also nurturing to others. And so doing things with an eye toward putting compassion and love out into the world as well.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. We have Laura asking, how would it be best to introduce mindfulness to our professors? As students, we need to have that time to absorb the information we are receiving. And I believe this would be very helpful to integrate in all Zoom classroom settings.
Well, yes, I think that you're absolutely right. And so an easy way to get started is on the ASU. So it's just mindfulnesscenter.asu.edu is our center website. And so it has on that website lots of different practices that you could use to begin a course or to end a course. And we do this, I teach doctoral students, we do this in the classroom. And what I hear from them is it really helps them focus, especially if they're going from Zoom class to Zoom class. It helps them let go of what just happened and prepare them for what is to come. So I think there's lots of different ways. And if you have a certain academic unit in mind, email us and we'll get with them and we can make things happen. Great question, thank you.
All right.
I'll just add super quick, bottom up. So if there's enough students going to a professor to say, hey, can we do mindfulness? It'll probably happen. So I encourage you to do that.
Good feedback. So I want to first thank the panelists. Thank you, Jackie, for moderating. This was a really amazing session. And I want to encourage everyone to come back to the next session. We have 2 more for today. The next one is on social media, technology, and well-being. And that starts promptly at 11:45. And then the final one are tools and solutions for making connections. So again, thank you all for your time today. Taylor has put up the link for the next well-being social media, technology, and well-being panel. But before we leave, I want to just give opportunity for Taylor to announce the door prizes for those of you who have stayed for this hour. And so I'm going to turn it over to Taylor. Thank you, Taylor.
Thanks, Rick, and thank you everybody for joining us today. And in an effort to support our local food entrepreneurs, and in lieu of a in-person conference where we'd normally order catering or things like that, we decided to offer some unique door prizes to you all as an incentive and a thank you for attending these sessions. So we have randomly selected 3 of you to receive a door prize, and we will contact you shortly after this to arrange the delivery. So first up, our first winner is Karen Unterschutz. Congratulations, Karen. You have won a Mind and Body Nutrition gift certificate for a 45-minute virtual nutrition consultation from Nutrition Tango. The next winner is Kevin Morris. Congratulations, Kevin. You have won a paperback book set on family nutrition from Nutrition Tango. And our final winner is Jonathan Komar. You have won half dozen homemade Pop-Tarts from Laurel Bakery. So congratulations to all of our winners, and thank you so much for sticking with us through the entire panel. I also wanted to let you know that our panelists were kind enough to offer some door prizes to all of you as well. So Susan's company, M2 Wellbeing, has offered all of you access to 2 free virtual mindfulness workshops. The details for that are attached in the handout that I put in the link in the chat there, and you'll also receive those details in a follow-up email shortly after the event. In addition to that, Janet Bruno has offered complimentary access to her Mind Mastery app, which includes 8 video courses about the shift method. So I encourage you all to take advantage of those opportunities. And thank you all so much again for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Pipe, Dr. Bruno, Susan, Jackie, and Rick for being here today. We appreciate all of you. So thanks again and have a great day, everyone. We'll see you at the next session.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.